Hey folks, have you ever noticed that anger is just a D away from danger? Yes, one little letter standing between frustration and a full-blown catastrophe. Let's dive into how managing the D in anger can be the key to steering clear of danger. Stick around and we are gonna turn this linguistic twist into a powerful life lesson. You know, we all have those buttons, those things that when we push, they lead us straight into the anger zone. Some people call them the pet peeves, or they call it the triggers. Regardless of the name, it is crucial to identify these triggers and take action before your anger takes control. Let's look at this. A lady called Tabitha in school. She's minding her own business, and here she's accused of taking Jessica's textbook. But wait, she did not even go close to Jessica's locker. But John, who is inspired by some investigative spirit, insists that Tabitha should return Jessica's textbook because it contains her precious homework. Now Tabitha is feeling pressured, and now she clenches her fist and her voice rises as she tries to defend herself. For Tabitha, accusations of lie is her trigger. And before you know it, anger takes center stage. She is angry. Let's get ready as we look at how we can deal with this anger. Just like Tabitha, each of us have our unique triggers, and let's look at some of them. Nagging is one. Breaching confidence by sharing secrets is another one. Attempting to dominate or boss you around. You don't like that. That's number 3. Now we have accusing you of something that you did not do, or invading your personal space. Number 6, falsely attributing statements to you. Number 7, creating repetitive noises or borrowing your belongings without asking you, or even borrowing and damaging your possession. Sometimes we have engaging in hurtful gossip, snooping through your personal belongings. So, dear listener, the first step in managing anger is recognizing these triggers. Now, knowing what pushes your button will give you the power to respond differently. So what we're going to do now is let's explore an important aspect of the Bible. Let's see the characters that struggled with anger, and let's try to identify the things that were their triggers, and let's see how they handle this anger. We're doing this with the purpose of making this relatable to you, my dear listeners. So let us begin with a familiar character, Moses. Now, Moses was a great leader, but he had his share of anger issues. One of the well-known triggers that Moses faced was the constant complaint of the people and rebellion of the people. Now imagine a leader, you're leading a group of people through the wilderness, and then they keep grumbling about food, water, everything else. You know, this is enough to test anyone's patience. But let's think about this. How did Moses handle his anger in such challenging situations? Well, now Moses, he allowed his anger to get the best of him at times. There was an instance when he struck a rock in anger instead of speaking to it as God instructed. This act led to consequences for Moses. Now this is a reminder that even great leaders can struggle with anger. You know, it is a reminder that we all have our moments of weakness. Let's talk about another character, Jonah. Now, he got angry when God showed mercy to the people of Nineveh, the very people that God had sent him to deliver a message of judgment to. His anger was triggered by what he perceived as God's failure to punish the Ninevites. Let's reflect. What can we learn from Jonah's story about how he handled his anger? Jonah's story teaches us about the dangers of harboring anger and resentment. His anger not only affected his relationship with God, but it also caused him great personal sufferings. Jonah's example reminds us that when we hold on to anger, it can harm us more than anyone else. And now let's turn to a positive example, Jesus. Yes, even the Son of God faced situations that could have triggered anger. For instance, when he entered the temple and he found it had been turned into a marketplace, he displayed righteous anger. His trigger was the desecration of a sacred place. How did Jesus handle his anger in this situation? Jesus' response was different. He did not sin. He acted to correct a wrong situation. This teaches us the importance of righteous anger, anger that arises when we see injustice or wrongdoing. Instead of letting anger control us, we can use it as a catalyst for positive change. It's a reminder that we are not alone in our journey, and there are valuable lessons to be learned from these stories. Dear listeners, remember that we all face anger triggers, but it is how we handle them that matters. Whether it is seeking God's guidance, practicing forgiveness, or channeling anger for good, there are ways to manage anger in a healthy way. So we are about to embark on a fascinating journey through family dynamics and the way that they influence how we handle anger. Okay, so let's imagine that you are a kid and your dad hands you a list of chores before you can hit the mall with your friends, before you can go have a fun time with them at the mall. Now you look at the never-ending list and you mumble, clean this, do that. The more you look at it, you get angry. Now, and then you just mutter under your breath, do it yourself, Dad. But little did you know that Daddy heard you. And you know, Daddy goes full on Hulk mode. And he says to you, if I hear one more assumed smart word from you, you won't go anywhere. He thunders that. And then you are there, you're rolling your eyes, you're stomping off like a teenager tornado. And what happens? You go to tackle the chores. Now, you are not exactly handling them with grace. You toss the clothes away, you kick the door, dishes clanged. It's all a symphony of teenagers' angst. But here comes Dad marching in, slamming his hand on the counter and said, stop banging stuff around. And just when you thought it couldn't get any wilder, Mom swoops in and she says, what on earth is going on here? Now, she says, you two are like peas in a pond. And she says to you, Gabrielle, you did not get that temper from my side. You got that temper from your dad's side. So you get amused, but your mom is right. You know, family can be quite the expressive bunch when it comes to anger. Some families throw tantrums, some go for jog, some keep it all inside. It's all an emotional buffet. Let's draw an imaginary family tree. So picture this, a family tree with you at the bottom of the tree. Now, mom and dad just above you, and then their parents, that is your grandparents, above them. Now, we are going to explore how they handled anger. Do they blow up? Do they walk away? Do they yell? Do they throw things? Or perhaps do they go for a jog? And let's not forget the extended family as well. Your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your siblings. You know, those folks that you've been told that you are like them. Well, circle the names of the person that you most resemble in your response to anger. This family tree is like a mirror that's reflecting your anger tendencies. But wait, there's more. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to take you back. Don't forget the little reference to the Bible that we made. That's where we have our guiding light, Jesus. You see, even in those moments when you get frustrated, we can look to Jesus as our Savior. So let's turn to Him. The Bible teaches us about forgiveness, patience, and turning the other cheek. In those heated moments, we can remember Christ's example of love and grace. He is the ultimate role model for managing anger and seeking peace. Dear listeners, as you explore your family tree of anger, remember that it's all part of a grand tapestry of life. Embrace those quirks, learn from them, and let the teachings of Jesus guide you toward a more peaceful way of handling anger. So we are diving deeper into the teachings of Jesus Christ and how they guide us towards a more peaceful way of handling anger. We are about to navigate through some life-changing wisdom. You see, Jesus, He was the embodiment of love, compassion, grace. When it comes to dealing with anger, His teachings offer invaluable lessons. Let's explore Jesus' teaching. Let's start with forgiveness. Now, Jesus emphasized forgiveness as a cornerstone of His message. In the Lord's Prayer, He taught us to pray, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." So This reminds us that harboring anger and grudges only poisons our own hearts. Let's reflect on forgiveness. When you are upset with someone, try to remember the words of Christ about forgiveness. It doesn't mean that you have to condone the wrong, but letting go of the anger can set you free. So let's seek peaceful resolution. Let's talk about turning the other cheek. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "But I say unto you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also." This is not saying that you should be a doormat. It's about choosing peace over retaliation. Choosing peace. When you find yourself in a situation that triggers anger, consider Jesus' example. Instead of responding with more anger, seek a peaceful resolution. It takes strength to turn the other cheek. It is a powerful way to de-escalate conflict. Radical love is the next one. Love your enemies. That's another radical teaching of Jesus. He said, "But I say unto you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Now, this one is a game changer when it comes to anger management. So I want to tell a story about this one. So it's story time, and we've got a tale that tickles your funny bone and warms your heart, all while shedding light on the game changer that we just discussed. Love your enemy. There was a small town pastor named Pastor James. He was known for his patience, but there was one particular fellow who tested that patience to the limit. He tested that patience to the limit. Let's call this troublemaker Sam. Sam was the neighborhood prankster, and his favorite target was Pastor James. He will prank call pastor and leave whoopee cushions on his church pew, and once in the service, he even released a bunch of balloons in the middle of Pastor James' sermon. Now, most folks in the town, they were fed up with Sam's antics, and they did often encourage Pastor James to confront him. But our pastor was a man of faith, and he remembered Jesus' word, "Love your enemies." One sunny afternoon, Pastor James decided to invite Sam over to his house for a chat. So he knew it was like inviting a tornado into his living room, but he believed in the power of love and compassion. So meeting Sam now. So Sam arrived with a sly grin, and he was thinking he was in for another round of pranks. But Pastor James surprised him with kindness, and Pastor James offered him a glass of lemonade and asked him about his life, about his dream, and about what made him tick. Here is where the suspense kicks in. Sam was taken aback. No one had ever shown him this kind of attention before. So he started talking about his struggles, his loneliness, and how pranks were his way to cope with his pains. So here comes the turning point. As Pastor James listened, he realized that behind Sam's mischievous facade, there was a hurting soul. So he understood that Sam wasn't his enemy, but he was someone in desperate need of love and guidance. So here was unveiling love by Pastor James. Over time, Pastor James became a mentor to Sam. They worked together on community projects. They shared meals, they prayed together, and slowly but surely, the prank stopped and a friendship blossomed. One day, Sam admitted that he had been the culprit behind all the pranks at the church, including the whoopee cushions and the balloon fiasco during sermons. They both burst into laughter at the absurdity of it all. Here's the life lesson. Through this story, dear listeners, we see the game changer that Jesus' teaching, "Love your enemies," can be. Pastor James did not just stop Sam's pranks. He transformed a young man's life by showing him unconditional love and compassion. Here comes my closing thought on this story. So as you go out your day, remember this tale of Pastor James and Sam. Sometimes those we perceive as enemies are just hurting souls in disguise. With love and compassion, we can break down walls and we can build bridges of understanding. This is Shadrach, reminding you that by following Christ's teaching, you can turn even the most mischievous enemy into lifelong friends. Let's practice love. When you encounter someone who's been a thorn in your side, try viewing them through the lens of love. Pray for them, wish them well, and you will find that your anger starts to lose its grip. And let's not forget about this: compassion. Jesus showed immense compassion to those who angered him or were in need. His story of the prodigal son illustrates how he welcomes us back with open arms, even after our rebellious moments. Let's show compassion. When anger wells up inside you, take a moment to think about the other person's perspective. Practice empathy and compassion just as Jesus did. It can soften the edges of your anger. So dear brothers, dear sisters, as you go about your day and encounter situations that trigger anger, remember the teachings of Jesus Christ. Forgiveness, turning the other cheek, loving your enemies, and showing compassion. These are powerful tools in your anger management toolbox. This is a reminder that by following the path of Christ, you can navigate the stormy water of anger and find the peaceful harbor of love and grace. Until next time, stay blessed and keep letting Christ's teaching guide you to a more serene life. God bless you. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to support the channel, and so these can get to other people far and wide. Like the video, and more people will be able to get this same message that you have heard. Thank you and have a lovely day.